All right, welcome to the Eric Tries Too Hard podcast. This week we have Dan Ciarrocchi, famed former musician, I guess current musician, but former famed musician and current up-and-coming fantasy sports writer. I'm going to prompt you to say hello.
I could do that. I can say hi. I wasn't looking at the screen. I'm supposed to be looking at you for those like visual cues or something, but I don't know.
Oh yeah, you can just cut in whenever.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, up and coming writer doesn't mean that means I'm not typically used to human interaction or anything. I'm just used to behind the screen and very not for the social cues. So cool.
That's okay. That's okay. You know what I do for a living, so I can help you out with that. So I want to say first off, congratulations on the award you just won. That's fucking awesome.
Thanks. I'm pretty stoked about it, actually. It should be coming in the mail pretty soon. There was a big award ceremony for it in Vegas. I was unable to do that this year, but needless to say, I'm pretty stoked about it.
Dude, that's so fucking cool. Yeah, no, that definitely. And what's the official award and conference called?
It's the Fantasy Sports Writers Association have this awards show every year. It's pretty legit. It's awesome. There's always guys from like Yahoo, CBS, ESPN, Pro Football Focus, Roto World in attendance. Just basically the industry, the quintessential standards of the industry are in attendance there.
Yeah.
Which is why I was not. So, but yeah, they do this every year. It's awesome. They give out a handful of awards, some Fantasy Sports Writing Association Hall of Fame inductions, what have you. So yeah, the award I won was a Newcomer of the Year award, which is interesting. I've actually been doing this a while, but I actually started a new series this year for SB Nation called The Sack. It's just this Q&A where people write in honest fantasy questions, and I basically just divert their attention to something that's completely not fantasy related for the most part.
Your Q&A or your fantasy your fantasy mailbag is the responses you give. It's good advice, and it's also you come up with some unbelievable jokes. Like I don't
know what I'd say. Honestly, I could not tell you a single answer I've given someone this year, which is a good and bad thing, I guess.
Well, I think that makes sense. I mean, it feels like you have a wealth of sports knowledge, and you have a good sense of humor. I actually know you personally. A lot of the people on this podcast I don't know personally, but I know you. And I know that you've got a great sense of humor, and so it's like I feel like it comes very natural to you because you're just given the advice you'd give to a friend, and then you just make a joke because that's the world you know, and you got a good sense of humor.
It's basically the end result of what happens after a horrendous caffeine buzz, and it's just the verbal diarrhea that kind of comes with it when I'm just too, I don't know, when I just am looking to fill up some space on the page, or if I just don't feel like addressing why Demaryius Thomas is going to have 0.4 points more than Des Bryant this week, so whatever. Like, I kind of get bored myself sometimes. So I just want to, I don't know, I kind of need to go off on that tangent and kind of hit the mental reset button so I can actually legitimately answer some questions that someone might have.
Yeah. So this only came up because I've been doing a bunch of podcasts with comedians. I did 2 this morning, and I did a band last week and another comedian that week too. And this topic keeps coming up of Twitter and having people give them shit on Twitter about like, oh, that joke sucked or that song's terrible. Now, I wanted to point out how you, of all these other people that in these professions that are usually there's a lot of shame and modesty and downtroddenness, you're definitely exuding far more of that than they ever were. And so with all the Twitter stuff, I wanted to get your take on what happens when you get shit from people on Twitter.
The rule of thumb I try to adhere to is if, I'm going to give wrong fantasy advice, like, each week. It's always going to be the case. And with that is always going to be some jackass who calls me out for it. That's totally fine. I do not mind being called out for that. It's part of the job. But anyways, the rule of thumb I try to adhere to is if you're going to be wrong for the right reasons. least have a good reason why you thought, DeMarco Murray was going to outscore frickin' Jonas Gray or something this week. Because, oh, God, fuck Jonas Gray. But yeah, it can get pretty bad. Some people don't really understand that. It's like they would have rather me have said Jonas Gray is going to score more than DeMarco Murray this week, and I could come and say the next day and cry, hey, I had this all worked out, but 99% of the people who were reading it at the time would not have taken me seriously. I'm not trying to be Nostradamus or anything like that. It's just, you can't. No one is. So yeah, the backlash is always, I always get that kind of backlash, but whenever I do, it's easily dismissed. So.
Yeah. And that's really cool just to hear, because I knew personally that you and other fantasy sports writers, or any sports writer, period, anyone trying to make predictions on a game, you're dealing with things with objective stats. So at the end of the day, someone can say you were right or you were wrong about something. Whereas,
it's quantifiable.
Yeah, yes, quantifiable. Perfect way to put it. Except, unlike an artist who everything is subjective, you can still go home and tell yourself, no, it was good, they just didn't get what I was going for. You can't just do that with, if you make a bad call and you're like, well, you just didn't get what I was going for.
Oh, sure.
It's the points that aren't there.
I think I need to start doing that, though. I think I should tell people that with all of my advice, they need to just read between the lines and think of what I'm really saying.
It's like jazz. It's just the points that aren't there, the points they're not scoring.
I can do that at home.
So how's married life?
Sucks ass. It's abject dread, and I want to kill myself every day of my life. No, it's actually pretty cool. My wife's awesome. She's actually in the other room starting Elder Scrolls right now while I finish this. We're working through Oblivion, actually.
My wife she's played through Oblivion 2 or 3 times, played through Skyrim a few times. I am well versed in the field of watching your spouse play Elder Scrolls. Yeah,
Skyrim is the next one we're gonna do. And I'll try not to say Skyrim when you're taking a sip of whatever it is you.
Skyrim. Skyrim. I always tell her she plays Skyrim like it's her job.
Yeah, I've never played it, so.
All right, so I mostly want to talk to you about fantasy stuff because, first off, you're the guy who got me into fantasy, so thank you for that.
You're welcome.
You let me stay in your league even after I yelled the names of Magic cards during the draft because I didn't know any football players.
Did that happen? I don't even remember.
The first draft. The year I lost completely, yes.
Right. No, but you picked Percy Harvin in the last round. That's the thing I remember most because it was a keeper league, and you picked him when everybody just forgot he was a football player. And I still forget he's a football player. Because
I traded him to you, and you had to deal with him this year.
Yes, and then I traded him away and turned to someone else. So
the reason with that Percy Harvin, so during it, because we were all getting hammered, and I had just come from a show, and so I was already pretty toasty.
I remember.
And after making my first 4 or 5 picks, I just tried to start making the guy in my band who's also in our league, Dave, laugh. And so I was like, I'm going to name stuff he's going to know, and no one else is going to have any idea. But the Percy Harvin pick, that was because the only football, not just fantasy football, period, I knew was from watching the league. And I had just watched the Halloween episode where they're debating about whether he should play Percy Harvin. And he's like, it's the Halloween one, and so it's all like spooky monkey thing, and Ruxinson is taking out his trash, and he's like, who is that? Is that Pete? It's that Percy Harvin.
Is that the one when Jenny's getting humped in the head by a monkey when she's wearing a frog suit?
Duh.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember that. That was a good episode.
It's a solid one. That's the one that I'm excited for, because I'm having a kid pretty soon. I'm excited to, years from now, do their whole combined adult and kid Halloween and bring a booze cart down the street while they're trick-or-treating. I think that would be freaking fantastic.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm going to, I got to find some way to not screw that up. Oh, man.
So, dude, with the beanie on, you really do, I know you make reference that you have a slate, not everyone's going to see this video, but you look a little bit like Aaron Rodgers, definitely with the beard. I don't usually see it, but with the beanie and the beard, I got it. You're absolutely right.
My good friend Tom actually always says, like, dude, Aaron Rodgers, you kind of look like Aaron Rodgers. Like, if you were like attractive, talented, had a career, had direction in your life, had ladies over you constantly. Yeah, I could definitely see a lot of similarities between you and Aaron Rodgers if you were like successful or had anything going on for you, or were in shape or athletic. Yeah, you got a lot in common with Aaron Rodgers, man.
Your friend, you're the person who said this was your friend, correct?
Yeah, and I want him dead.
Yeah. Oh man, I love Tom. I miss Tom. Sex Tom. All right, so yes, so I do want to. We'll get back to the fantasy stuff because that's definitely what I want to talk to you about. But I also, since I typically just do comedians or musicians here, I want to point out that you were, and still are, I guess, a musician in that you play music. But you were in a pretty successful pop punk band in the mid 2000s.
Easily, probably the most random period of time of my life was
really
being able to say that I did that. Just in context with everything else I've ever done, or even the music I've listened to, or anything like that. It was just I kind of look at that whole experience as just an outlier, but which was pretty cool though.
Well, then how'd you fall into it? Could you? Because I know, just to give a brief, like, so you played in a band called BRB. Bravo, Romeo, Bravo. And, and so through that, in the Baltimore music scene, there was another band that you eventually joined called Dropout Year.
Yeah.
So they were a pop punk band at a very good time to be a pop punk band.
Yeah. And, yeah, it really was.
And so how did you go about joining that band? That's because that's a band that I reference that to people in pop punk now, and they see Dropout Year as, oh, that's that legendary band that broke up right before we got into pop punk. But it's still a name that like I can drop and people recognize it.
I mean, it's just weird to think that band has any precedent for anything as far as what to do or I guess for.
Well, to be fair,
bands now.
I'll bring it up, and they'll go like, "Oh yeah, it's
that band." I remember them. They were on this random mixtape. Like they're basically like, I don't know, the myriad of pop punk bands I would listen to back in high school or something like that. But yeah, they were. I knew a couple of the guys from high school. They were actually seniors, and I was a freshman. And for some reason, just kept talking to them over the years. Not super close or anything, but close enough to just have casual conversation with them, and we would play, and my old band would play some shows with them, so we would keep that going. And they had lost their singer/bassist and needed a replacement, so I just kind of threw my name in the hat for that, and the rest was the rest.
You and I have a couple of very weird, like, coincidences through people we know.
Yeah.
And one of them is that right when they needed a new bassist, I moved from North Carolina. I finished school, quit my band, and moved up from North Carolina back to Maryland. And I was looking for a band to play bass in. And I contacted those guys because they were posting everywhere looking for a bassist. And I was going through the process with them. And eventually they were like, yeah, we're going to need you to put a video you playing bass on YouTube and like do like this competition. And I was like, how about I come jam with you guys? Like, no, you can put a video on YouTube. And so I was like, well, I guess that's not going to happen. But you just skirted that whole process.
Truthfully, they weren't really people persons. So I could absolutely see that them using that method to work best for them.
I went online. There were a bunch of people who posted videos of them auditioning, and none of them made it, obviously.
To be fair though, like while they're not people, I get, man, that's such a weird phrase to pluralize. While they're not that, they did have a ton of interest for people who wanted to kind of do that.
Yeah.
So I can absolutely understand. You just logistically you can't jam with a few dozen people and still want to get things done as a band. So that much I do understand. To kind of rub salt in your wounds that are hopefully closed at this point, I never once made a YouTube video for them. I just came over, jammed, and,
like a normal person.
Yeah, like people, like a human.
No, I just remember because that was the first, and then the band I ended up joining, which was a bunch of guys I went to high school with, but hadn't talked to in like 4 years. And one of them happened to be a friend of yours from college, which was Chris.
What? Yeah. Oh right. Oh, you're talking about
Yeah, Old
right.
Line
Yeah.
Regulars. Yeah, yeah.
Like I said, that was a really random outlier time in my life. So I kind of chalk everything up I experienced, not just my own,
But then,
uh,
yeah, yeah.
to that.
Well, so
So I forget things.
so going on in our weird connections with music. So then I join Old Line Regulars, and I meet you, and not because I met you, but because you knew Chris and Steve, I guess.
Yeah.
You were my fill-in bassist when I couldn't make shows at Old Line Regulars.
Yes, that
But that was still
happened.
before we were like friends. Like we just kind of knew each other.
Yeah, that happened once, and we
Oh, it only
played.
happened once.
Yeah, that I filled in once
I thought it was more than
for
that.
a show, and then I filled in for one song of a set when I don't know why. Still, probably alcohol related, and
I would bet. I would bet. I think that was a show that I wasn't expecting to come to, and so you were prepared to do. Because I remember there was two shows I didn't think I was going to make,
that
and
was the
it
one.
might have. Oh, sorry.
No, I was saying that was the one I was gonna get to. Like there was one I think at the end of a show that I filled in for one song or something. But then there was one that you were running really late for that I was kind of preparing my diaphragm to get on stage and do my thing.
That's awesome. Well,
Yeah.
so there was that. That's a smaller because we knew each other at that point. But also we learned that another band that I had joined, like in between the whole Dropout Year audition thing and then officially joining Old Line Regulars, I was in a band that eventually turned their name into Car Party. And your old roommate and became the vocalist of Car Party after I left Car Party.
Yeah, I forgot that was a thing too.
Yeah.
But
And
that
then
definitely happened.
meanwhile, I don't know if he was a roommate of yours or just a friend from college, but right after I moved up to Maryland to start a new band, he moved down to North Carolina and started playing drums in a band that I was really good friends with. And I was only good friends with like two other bands there. I think that
Yeah,
was Mitch.
no,
Or
it
was
was Matt.
Matt. Fuck. Matt.
Matt,
Yeah.
he was in my band when I was in college, before Dropout Year.
So we just had all these musicians who knew each other tangentially, and you and I were the common link, which I thought was really cool.
I mean, the
Um,
thing with Baltimore in general is that it's always going to be incestuous. I mean, I feel like that's indicative of any music scene.
yeah,
So
that's
yeah,
fair.
it doesn't surprise me, but it's pretty cool nonetheless.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if anything, it's just a good sign that all of us, like, there's a lot. I know a lot of musicians who do one project or one band, and then when that's over, they just quit music. And I think it's a good sign that the people we've surrounded ourselves with are musicians at their core, or at least were for the majority of our 20s.
Yeah, or just enough for that specific timeline. I don't know if I don't know if I can really say that I'm a musician at my core, but but I definitely was for a period of time. Right now, not so much. I mean, I haven't done anything, but still, yeah, that's the end of that sentence, I guess.
No such thing as ending sentences
No.
succinctly.
Yeah.
Not on this podcast. Not goddamn not for sure. Okay, so you joined the band, Dropout Year,
Yeah.
and they were already kind of established, right?
Oh, totally. Yeah, they had already been on tours, done their whole thing. Yeah, they were pretty much at the top of their game when they lost their singer, which really sucks from their standpoint. But after, I mean, I would like to say it was a seamless transition with me, but I mean, because I think it was from my perspective. We were still doing a ton of stuff, and we were having lots of fun and having some really really successful shows, and sales were good, and tours. I mean, touring was good, were good, but yeah, it went pretty well.
So was that? I don't know your full band history. I kind of like popped in and out to check on you guys. I know I definitely saw you at a Warped Tour, but like, so you got to work with some pretty cool producers, right? Or at least one.
Yeah, I know. Well, when I recorded with them, we only went through one guy, and that was Rob Freeman
Yeah.
from formerly Hidden in Plain View. He runs his own studio now up in Jersey doing his thing. I have not been too up to date with what he's been working on of late, but I know he's still doing that whole producing thing.
He hits
And
us up like every other year.
oh, does he?
Yeah.
Oh, dude, honestly, fantastic experience.
If he had the money and the time, we would. He's great.
Yeah, sure. I mean, maybe he'll work with you. I mean, maybe there's something you can find, some kind of solution. But I honestly, like I said, I'm not just on his jock or anything like that. He legitimately was the best studio experience I have ever had, hands down. Not just for his knowledge and just ability to kind of work with the band. He really is an extra member of the band, and he's fantastic. And his songwriting ability, and just he can get the most out of the songs you bring to the table. I fully believe that. And not just that, it's going to sound pretty lame, but just honestly, the atmosphere of his studio was one of the biggest things that it was just one of the best aspects of recording.
Yeah.
It was just in this little, like, humble kind of downtown Main Street setting. You could just kind of go out, and if you needed to kind of just hit that reset button on your mind, you can just kind of go out, take a walk, go to these mom and pop stores, sit in a park, whatever, just kind of I mean, I wrote like most of the lyrics. I think that most of the unwritten lyrics at that point, just sitting down in the park, doing that, and just kind of hoping a cute girl with a dog on a leash would just come up to me and, be like, hey, I'm just writing these lyrics for my band. You should, yeah, I mean, I'm not a douche. You should definitely.
Dude, that's the setup to the most sensitive porn I've ever heard.
Except I'm in it.
No. Oh yeah. Then it gets a little dirty.
Yeah.
Dude, oh man. Well, that sounds awesome. Like, my favorite time of the year with band stuff is always. It's not even the biggest shows of the year. It's certainly not anything that has to do with touring. I've always hated that. Every time I've done it,
Me too.
I hate leaving my house. But like, it was always the studio. Mm-hmm. Like, even if you had to travel to be in the studio, or you spent a couple days there, or even if you're just going back commuting from home, but like that, whatever week or however long you end up being in the studio for is always my favorite time, because it's everybody hanging around, like fucking with each other, a little bit of drinking probably, and definitely a lot of creative stuff. And that's always like my favorite combination of everything.
Yeah, it's definitely an experience that I'll never. I mean, it's unlike anything else, because you can seriously just have a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, however long it is, to really just kind of shut yourself in and only focus creatively. And that's just such a unique experience that I would honestly recommend for anyone, just to kind of be fortunate enough to be in a position where you can just straight up only worry about that and none of the other logistical bullshit in life, and solely focus on your craft. That is something I think, I mean, I would love to do it again before I die. That's for damn sure. So.
That's awesome. No, so are you interested in talking about the end of Dropout Year, or just move over that and talk some?
Totally. I can answer whatever you want to the best of my ability. So.
Well, fair enough. I was just going to say, just to give this part closure before I move on to the next part, so it seemed like it was, and correct me if I'm wrong, relatively, I don't want to say smooth sailing, but it was progressive sailing throughout the band. Mm-hmm. And then it kind of fizzled out. Like, I know I've heard the story from you before, but just in general, what happened as the band was fizzling out? Because it felt like it was just red hot and then just disappeared.
That's pretty much what happened. I think every band gets to a point when they want to decide how into it they are. And there just comes this tipping point where we can either just kind of quit everything we're doing and go, balls to the wall, etc., or we can just kind of be content in what we're doing right now. And the thing about being in a band is that if you don't get better, you get worse. And as is the case with a lot of things, we were basically at a point where we could have invested in ourselves and taken that next step. But I think internally, just as a whole, as a band as a whole, I'm not calling anyone out specifically for this. I kind of realized that as a whole, we weren't doing what we needed to do to take that next step, and I kind of checked out of it mentally as a result, and it was kind of this mutual decision. I mean, and at that point, there was nothing else to do for me to just not be in the band anymore. So that's what happened with me. And there really hasn't. I'm not saying the band ended with me leaving, but they really haven't done anything.
I mean, yeah.
Like
from an outsider perspective, I followed the band after you left the band. I'd been following it when you were in it, but at the end, they said they're like, let's do this acoustic, and then I don't remember if they did an acoustic show or not, and then it was just nothing until they did like one show for Wrecker when Wrecker was closing. That was about it.
I think they did like one Warped Tour date, one record date, and I think that's as far as I know, that was it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, you penned my favorite Dropout Year song, so thank you for that.
I did.
I still listen to it. Yeah,
Which
I think
song?
it was you. Ready, Go.
Oh, Lights Turn Low.
Yeah.
I did write the lyrics for that, yes.
Yeah, I fucking love that one. That's one. There's one part in the bridge, which is just like a little couple quick hit thing, or not quick. I don't know, whatever. I don't know how to describe it, but it's really, really cool. And I always wanted to steal that, but I couldn't like figure out how to put it into another song. Well, no, I just couldn't figure. Yeah, that's fair. I couldn't think of a way to like do it naturally and also make it unique so that it was less. It wasn't stealing what you did. It was more like, because you're not the first person to do like a 3-chord change, like
No.
But I wanted to get that feel.
We were not the first band to do anything first.
Yeah,
ever.
Exactly. That's why whenever I hear somebody say like, oh, somebody else took that from this part of the song, and it's like, well, yeah, but they took that from, and they took that from, and they took that.
Yeah.
From, like, it doesn't fucking matter. Anyway, but I couldn't figure out how to do it, and I didn't even mention it to our producer. But like, there was one song we have, and in the middle of the verse, he just goes, "Hey, why don't you do this?" and did that exact thing, and then hit this natural point. And I was like, "Yes, I have one of those." Anyway, that's how I make a story about you into a story about me.
Yeah.
So let's move on from that. All right, so when you were finished with that band, you and Tom, the guy who said all those nice things about you looking like Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, that's right.
You guys started another band, which at the time was called Woodwork.
Yeah, I don't know why.
And that was right when. I guess that was right before I started like hanging out with you more, because I remember Chris played me the 3 early demos you had from it, and maybe there was 4, but he started playing me the demos, and I just remembered being like, I was like, holy shit, that's like if Death Cab for Cutie had more of a Jimmy Eat World feel to it, which I later learned are 2 bands that you're definitely influenced by.
Absolutely.
So like, mission accomplished. And eventually, you changed the name to Proofreader, and I played some bass for you.
Yes, you did, and it was pretty awesome. And
that was so much fun. Like that's what I was gonna say with the studio talk. Like we all got to go into the studio together and just hang out for like a week.
That was also an amazing recording experience. I mean, I really didn't have, honestly, before Rob Freeman, there really hadn't been too many positive experiences that I've had recording. So to be able to kind of do that, and we went in with Justin Day, that was awesome, man. Those songs are the best I've ever written, in my opinion. And
they're fantastic. Yeah.
Thanks. Thank you.
Oh yeah, no, I seriously, like that's one of the that's a record that I do like listen back to a few times a year, just because, and not just because I'll listen to shit because I'm on it,
right.
But like when I listen to like Old Line Regulars, which I play bass on, I listen mostly for the bass. Like that's what jumps out at me whenever I hear the Proofreader stuff. I forget that I played on it. I forget that it's there. Like there's so much other stuff going on.
Your bass parts are pretty forgettable, Eric. But I can
you
share
wrote them. Because I was gonna ask. That's an experience. Like you as a songwriter, I've been in a lot of bands before. Half of which I've led, half of which I just played my instrument. But I'd never been in a band where one person had so much direction. And so, like, with yours, it was you knew exactly what you wanted out of the rhythm guitar parts. You knew what you wanted out of the bass parts. I think there were 2 songs where you're like, Eric, write a bass part. The rest, you were like, no, I have exactly what I want. I know exactly how it's going to sound. And you would even, when we were practicing, like, learning the songs, you were directing Tom's drum parts as well. And so it was like, and so it was like I'd never really seen someone piece together the entire song in their mind that way. And you've even told me like sometimes you'll write songs without even picking up a guitar.
Yeah.
Like you have it, and that blew me away because I've never since then I've experienced a few people who do that, but that's something that takes a skill set that I can't even fathom. Like to be able to see it as a whole before all the pieces are even laid out.
I mean, it's not. I wouldn't say it's 100% in my head, but I can at least get the backbone of the song that way, and I don't really even think that's a quality that I can associate myself with anymore, because I think I've tried doing it since, and it's just not working. My body of work kind of speaks for itself in that way. I've done, like, pretty much nothing. So, you know,
you focused on other areas of your life.
that to an extent, but it's not like I've disregarded it completely. You know, I've definitely tried. And I still have some ideas. I still have some stuff that I would love to kind of crystallize, but it just hasn't happened for whatever reason, creatively or logistically. Um, but yeah, that was also the most focused I think I've ever been creatively in my lifetime. There were a million different things going on that just kind of culminated into the right scenario for me to kind of write the best songs that I've done in my lifetime. You know, I was really inspired. I was just coming out of a band where I was not satisfied creatively. I wasn't satisfied from the business standpoint of them as well. So I was eager to kind of do my own thing in that respect. And then other things just kind of happened too. I fell in love and I married her to my eventual wife. I lost my father in 2010, so it was just kind of like a tidal wave of fucking shit that was just kind of there at the time, and I was really able to kind of just use my music not just as a coping mechanism, but just to kind of really make any sort of sense or just kind of have any sort of response to it because I didn't really have anything else at the time.
Yeah.
So honestly, I think I am more of a person who likes to kind of jam and bounce ideas off of other people, which I know is probably hard for you to believe because I was pretty rigid.
It was awesome. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, well, good, and I'm glad you did. But that's probably not. I don't think that that's indicative of how I do things for the most part because I've been used to doing things as a band. You know, I would have my part obviously for certain things, but this is just kind of, but that was just a really unique time in my life, and
you knew exactly what you were trying to make, and I think you succeeded.
I would love to have that again, man.
Yeah.
I just, it just hasn't. I don't know. Maybe just kind of talking this with you, maybe I should stop trying to recreate that and just go with whatever's natural at this point. But
well, that's what's weird. I kind of came to. Oh, first I want to say that also for those listening. I'm going to put up a link to the Proofreader record. I'll put up a link to anything else you want me to, but I definitely want to put up the link to that. Like lyrically, it's one of the most moving records I've ever heard. Like I thought so before I even really knew what everything was about. And then once it all put it together, I put it together for myself. I was like, oh shit, that's unbelievable. But definitely check that out. But I was actually going to ask this anyway. But you kind of brought it up. So my whole life, I always was a volume writer. I would write so much, like it was something like 50 plus songs a year. I'd write full songs, get them out there. Then I'd pick the ones I thought had the most potential, or pick apart the ones I thought that had the most potential, and keep revising until I had an album a year's worth of songs. And it wasn't until this past year, or I guess like middle of last year, where I just kind of stopped and let myself just go, I'm just going to write if it comes to me. And in the last couple of years, in the last, like, whatever it has been, like, maybe like 9 months, I haven't written whatever 35 songs or whatever that computes to. I've written maybe like 8 or 9. But I love the 8 or 9 songs that I've written because I feel like they all came from a natural place and I'm throwing out far less than I did before. And so that makes perfect sense to me. Like whether you're in a position like with that Proofreader record where you're like, I have this thing I need to get out of me, and this is the vehicle that I'm going to use to get it out. You can have that and put together a record with that kind of passion and fury of just getting that creativity out. Or once every month you might write a song because it came to you in that moment. It felt natural.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's I've never been a volume writer either. And I think that's a good thing and a bad thing. I think obviously whatever you put out, you want quality over quantity, but a lot of people, it's a great starting point to just have that vast library of stuff to kind of pick and choose from and kind of springboard that to, more focused medium. But for me, I guess, I wasn't really like that for the Proofreader stuff. With Dropout Year, we wanted to just kind of go into the studio with as much as material as possible and then whittle it down because, like it or not, a good percentage of your material is going to suck.
Yep.
So that's, with the proofreader stuff, I wasn't really concerned about that. I didn't really care if it sucked. I think I just had something in mind of what I wanted to do, and I just wanted to get it down and say I did that to just kind of, just to have it on the record. And that was a really interesting way of doing things, I think.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome, man. Well, did you ever actually put up the full record?
I think
you did too.
I was kind of curious. I was kind of curious as to what link you were about to share, because
I think you put it on a generic. I was going to get to this. I was going to mention it off camera, but who gives a shit? You never put it on like a Bandcamp or anything. You put it on a generic Facebook player, I think.
Did I? Sounds like something I'd do.
I still don't have the masters on my computer. I have the like the mixed versions before they were fully mastered, just because I never had an easy download link. But I was gonna say you should put it on Bandcamp.
Ask Tom. He'll definitely have them. I'll get them up there. I know they're on Grooveshark.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. They but yeah. Anyways, something that should. And this conversation is extremely telling of that fact. I think when MySpace kind of stopped being the thing for bands, I think I was just in this post-apocalyptic wasteland of the internet where I didn't know what to do with my band or my music or anything like that. So the masters are just kind of floating around in cyberspace somewhere.
Yeah. I think I have them in a Dropbox. I don't know. You know what's huge now for music, for discovering new music, is YouTube? Fucking YouTube. Yeah. It's unbelievable, and we've been sitting on that gold mine of YouTube, but like we never really, like my current band now, we hadn't really done too much with it. Like, but if you start, bands are doing really well if they're treating YouTube like it's a social network. Mm-hmm. Like it's really, really cool.
It is.
That's something I'm gonna have to start doing. Anyway, so did the proofreader record, and I think it's also the fact that it wasn't like you didn't widely promote it everywhere was also telling of how that record was more for you and more for whoever wanted to hear it than it was like you weren't trying to like go sell your product. You were just trying to have it exist. Yeah, and I totally relate to that.
Yeah, I did. I kind of regret that a little bit because I guess I would have liked to have gotten more miles out of that, I guess you would say. But it definitely accomplished its main objective. But honestly, it's just something like if I had known where I am now, like I definitely, that kind of is an aspect of my life that's missing. Just to have that creative process and to just kind of have that associated with your life. I would definitely have tried to promote it a little bit more if I could, but I don't think I was just in that. I definitely was not in that state of mind to do that at the time.
And I had just finished with Old Line Regulars, and I mean, I'm all about hyping the shit out of whatever music I'm doing. But I remember at that time just being like, like I don't want to fucking.
I wanted my. Yeah. I wanted my close friends to kind of know it, and whoever else could gain something from it. It's not that I was trying to conceal it from anybody. I wanted it out there, and I wanted people to listen to it, but I wasn't gonna. I just felt like in this case, for this set of songs, it would have been extremely disingenuous of me to kind of.
Hey guys, check out my band.
I hate that shit. I hate selling things. I've never wanted to be something like that, and I guess I didn't want to see those songs or that product kind of fall in line with all of that. But maybe I should have thought harder to kind of find a good balance. So how can this thing be personal to whoever? I mean, to people who want to gain something from it.
Well, fortunately, those particular songs you didn't write them musically in a genre that's like held in one particular time. It's not like those songs, anyone's going to hear those songs and go, oh, that's outdated. Like, that's not cool anymore. Like, those are still songs where if you would have liked them 10 years ago, you're going to like them 10 years from now. So I feel like it almost doesn't matter what year it came out in. If there's ever a time where you want to put them out or promote them, I feel like you can.
Maybe I will. Yeah. Maybe I will.
Oh, but by the way, Old Line Regulars is in the recording studio today.
Wait, what?
Yeah, they're finishing up. I'm just gonna record my bass from home. but like we had 4 songs that we wanted to put out that I think 3 of them were the best songs we'd ever written.
Oh,
and
shit,
they just never came out because we broke up and Steve moved away before all that. But they're
Yeah.
in some. I'm sure it's not a great studio. I heard some of the demos. I was like, oh, okay, could have probably ponied up some money and gotten better quality, but that's okay.
As long as it's good enough, it doesn't. I mean, that's all that matters.
Yeah. Well, the other thing I was gonna say was because I'm not, for the last 6 months or so, Heavyweights, my band, has not been playing a show every week like we used to. Because that was the reason where anytime there was like a possible proofreader show, I couldn't do it. Like we played like 4 good ones, and then all of a sudden it was just like, yeah. If you want to do an old, you can do an Old Line Regulars proofreader show.
Jesus, I don't even remember if I can play the guitar anymore. Maybe. I mean, I think I can still sing okay. I can sing those songs decently, but man, I wonder. I wonder how much I'll suck.
I would love to have that show at like a Sam and Elsie's or at like a Crossroads at some bar.
No way. Sam and Elsie's does not exist, does it? There's no way.
Oh, it absolutely still exists.
Bullshit. I don't believe you.
But I would love any situation, because those two, like, oh my god, like that. Those 2 bands compiled like the biggest shit shows I've ever had. Like I could only imagine the trouble we get into.
Yeah. That'd be fun. I would schedule permitting or whatnot. I would definitely be down.
Permitting. TBA. Or TBD. So that stands for the big dick, if you didn't know.
Yes.
Yeah, of course. All right, so after proofreader, actually before I'm jumping all over the place, here's a question I always ask the musicians and the comedians typically is because art and athletics are so, at least in decades past, are so diametrically opposed to each other in a lot of ways that it seems like, especially for young men who choose one of those paths, there is like a hard line at some point in their past where they're like, I'm going to do art or I'm going to do athletics. But your main interests are both in music and sports. So can you tell us how that kind of came about?
I don't know. It's just kind of something that's been inherent in me, I guess. I know just, I mean, in high school, I was the kid who I was on the baseball and football team, but I also was in the chamber choir and did the musicals and plays. You know, I wanted to make time for that, so I did. I was just always interested in it. And I don't really, I mean, I could talk about just the crossover with sports and art,
yeah,
but it's just been, but I don't know, like I honestly have not really thought about it that much to really come up with an answer that's, articulate enough or have any kind of profound qualities to it. I don't know, like it's really just something that's kind of, maybe my siblings, I don't know, I have a sister close to me in age who has an incredible voice, who's just always had an interest, she always had an interest in that, and I just I probably absorbed some of that at an early age, and I don't know, maybe my brother just playing Madden with me on Sega Genesis probably paved the way for football for me. But, I never really thought that it had to be mutually exclusive. So I just kind of did it, and I still have, I think I probably have more of an interest now in sports than I do the arts, but it's not something that I purposefully shut out. It's just I only got one brain, and it can only be pulled in so many directions, I guess. So yeah, it's something that I would love to revisit, and I try to do as much as possible.
Yeah. Okay, so you got what's your degree in? Is it journalism or?
It is. It's mass comm with a focus in journalism and new media.
Yeah, I'm fairly certain that's exactly what my wife has. I think that's
really.
Yeah, it's mass comm with. It might have been with corporate and new media. I don't remember exactly. But anyway, so how long have you been playing fantasy football?
God. Well, I used to do fantasy baseball when I was in like.
Okay, sorry, fantasy sports. I should say, yeah.
Fantasy baseballs would start. Actually, I have a brother who's like 13 years older than me, and he would like. He would actually kind of get me involved in that. I was probably, I was kind of, I had like a Rain Man level of knowledge of baseball stats when I was 10, yeah. But I didn't have any, like, I didn't understand the context, but I could tell you that, like, Greg Colbrun, who is a really frickin' obscure 90s baseball player, hit 23 home runs in 1994. Or 93, rather. I'm not sure.
He's actually a big fan of the show. He'll tell you.
That's cool.
He'll tweet.
That's cool. I don't know what Greg Colbrun is up to these days, but that is definitely... I can't believe that is the first name of an athlete that came to my mind. So, I don't know. Maybe it's the dead brain cells at this point talking. Who knows? But anyways. So yeah, I used to... I mean, I just had this... Well, I just was obsessed with statistics and sports statistics at a young age. So I would just do that, and I would play with him, not really understanding a lot of it, but just do it for fun. And that kind of branched into, and I think a lot of the fantasy industry. I mean, fantasy baseball was pretty much the grandfather of it all.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And from there, my interest kind of grew with football, and then fantasy football started. I guess it was like middle school or high school when I started doing that. But it wouldn't be like a yearly thing like I do now. It wouldn't be something I would have my ear close to the ground to. I guess it kind of started. I guess I really became serious about it around like 2007 or so, mm-hmm. when I think that was also the year. That was the year of the 16-0 Patriots,
yeah.
And I lucked into having Tom Brady and Randy Moss on my team that year, which was, oh my God, that is the best I have ever felt. Probably not just in fantasy, but in life. just seeing that shit on Sunday, just like 10 points for that touchdown connection happened like twice a week. It was stupid, and it was just stupid. And I think that, you know what, I think the reason I'm doing it now is because I've been desperately trying to recreate that feeling, but it's never going to happen ever again. So, yeah, just chasing that dragon.
That sweet fantasy dragon.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, that's, yeah, so, okay, so you started playing around seriously around 2007.
Mm-hmm.
Were you the commissioner of any leagues until a couple of years ago, or had you led leagues and you just bounced around from group to group?
I just bounced around from group to group. I wasn't really the commissioner until like maybe about 5 years ago for certain leagues. Okay. I don't really I mean, it's just something I can do, and I like to do it, but it's not something I would have to be in order to enjoy it.
Yeah. Okay, so when did you start writing about it? Because I remember before you got picked up by SB Nation, you were still doing some writing.
Yeah, I guess I didn't really start writing about it until I was in college. I went to college straight out of high school, and then I dropped out for like 3 years, like 2.5, 3 years, to kind of pursue music and just kind of take time off to figure out what exactly it was that I wanted to do, because I didn't know for the longest time. And it wasn't until I went to college a second time, after I had left Dropout Year behind, that I started writing about fantasy football and sports. It actually started out as sports as a whole, and just kind of covering that, doing the aggregation and just covering events and all that shit. And fantasy just kind of seemed like a natural progression, and it was something that I was pretty good at, so I stuck with it, and it just kind of became what it is right now.
Makes sense. All right, so I won our league this year.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I want to clarify. You've gotten me so obsessed with this game that, like, I won't, if I do well next year.
Yeah.
Because I didn't just win I won all of my leagues. Like, granted, yours was not even close. Yeah, yours was by far and away the most competitive league.
Yeah.
Like, the other ones were like, one was pretty casual, one was kind of intermediate, and then yours was just fucking, everybody for the most part.
And it's never, in that experience of you, even in non-competitive leagues, like you winning across the board, that's not going to happen again. And
I know.
So enjoy it now. It doesn't matter how much you know. There will always be an element of luck to it. And
this is how lucky my Super Bowls were. There were two leagues I had the same week of a Super Bowl. One was yours. Half of the players on my opponent's team in our league Super Bowl were on my team in a different Super Bowl.
Oh,
5 of 9 players and one, and then whatever the other. Yeah, and it still won both.
That's crazy.
It was, the whole time it was just like everything went exactly right. Yeah, that will never, ever happen again.
No.
But I'm waiting. I'm waiting one more year before I start talking massive amounts of shit.
Right.
But we'll see. We'll see. But no, it's But like that, the game of so you know me. I'm a nerd. I love Magic: The Gathering. It's the greatest game ever, and I love it because none of us who play think that we're goddamn warlocks and witches. That's not what the game's about. It's just, at least to me, it's about like. It's a great strategy game with just enough luck to keep it interesting, but not too much that you feel completely out of control.
Right.
And it wasn't until in fantasy football, I don't think, just from a game mechanic and game theory standpoint, I think Magic is still a better constructed game than fantasy, but not by much. Specifically fantasy football, but not by much. It's a little bit better. Magic is, but with fantasy football, you get the added benefit of everyone fucking plays. Everyone gets really into it, and instead of a Magic, it's one tournament, one day, you have a whole season commitment of a team. To me, that development is the coolest fucking thing in the world. Like, that kind of puts it over the top for me.
And with fantasy, it's also, I feel like it's a much simpler game, so it's more universal, therefore. So, I mean, with me, I could probably do something like Magic if I gave enough of a shit to actually sit down and learn the rules. I'm an impatient person, so if I have to learn how to do something, then I don't. So that's me. It sucks.
Both games require an insane amount of grinding, like to keep up. Because like with Magic, there's new cards, and with football, it's new stats and new and whatever, and new patterns. But like, it's still like really cool throughout the week, and maybe I can only say this because I have a career and I'm older, that I can just listen to podcasts on the way to work or like when I'm at lunch or whatever.
Yeah.
Or like I can just go read up fantasy stuff online, and it's just a really, really great game. And my question to you is, do you find that the game itself, and this can go for fantasy baseball too, but do you feel like the game itself, that you like playing it because of the game itself, or is it more strictly about the sports? It's just the focus is the sports, and the game is something that kind of enhances it? Or are you at the point, like me, where sports are great, but the game is just so good that's what keeps me going?
It's both. I mean, I could watch a football game without having players on my fantasy team be a part of it. I'm at the point. I mean, I've been at the point. Then that's just inherent in me. I just like watching it and seeing what happens, and not worrying so much about the stats and stuff like that. The fantasy game is just kind of a cherry on top for that. But you're right. It really has become its own monster. It's just and that's just kind of enhanced everything as a whole. So I don't really know which came first, the chicken or the egg in this point. But but I just think it's great, whatever it is.
Do you find that you end up rooting for teams based on like the positive, like even if none of them are on? Okay, sorry, let me rephrase. So, do you ever find yourself like you draft some players on a team one year, and then you spend the whole year rooting for those players? Do you ever find that, say, the next year you don't have any players on that team? Do you still kind of end up rooting for that team just because of the positive association, or have you played enough seasons where that's not even really a thing anymore for you?
It's not. That's kind of why I like keeper leagues, because you can kind of have that, and it's cool because you can watch these guys become your guys, and and you kind of have this. You just want to root for them no matter what. But for me, I don't know. I guess I'm just so jaded, and I hate everyone anyway. That I just don't care. Like I hate every fan of every team, including the ones that I root for. I hate everyone. You are stupid. I hope you experience nothing but abject dread the rest of your life for your team. I hate you so much. So I don't even care. Like, it honestly doesn't even faze me, and it really sucks because right now it just sounds like I'm completely dehumanizing all of these men who play sports for a living, like just put themselves through this grind that I could never even fathom. But it's just, so I don't mean to do that, but I guess the result is I don't care about you. I don't care about what you do. I don't care who you root for. I'm just going to watch the game and try to enjoy it as much as possible without thinking of the droves of idiotic fans who know nothing about anything and are stupid as hell. So I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly how I feel about music.
Speaking of which, I encourage everybody who's listening to please write to me because I really care about your opinion.
No, dude, that's why I like the whole music industry. I hate everything. It's just the amount of hate that comes out of me, but I still love it and still do it all the time. Like, it doesn't stop that. Yeah.
Of course. Yeah,
so,
and anybody who is genuinely interested in getting help or just my opinion, or even if they're not genuinely interested, if they're just whatever, I do like helping people. I do like it's not that I'm some freaking saint and I just want everybody to do well in their leagues, because it's not true. I don't think that's true for anybody. I just love the conversation. I love bouncing things off of other people because I learn them myself that way. You know, by being in the position where I need to give advice helps put me at the top of my game so I can better understand things, and that just kind of it continues the cycle. The better I am, the better advice I can give, and so on. And so people hopefully come back and get a good and hopefully come away with after having spoken to me, hopefully they come away with something. Hopefully they come away smarter or something like that, just more knowledgeable about a particular topic. And if I can do that, then that's pretty much its own reward. Also, they're very stupid.
So fuck you. No, tweet at Dan Sack. Wait, what is it? What's your actual Twitter handle?
It was it's at the Sack SBN. Dan Sack is something completely different. I think.
Yeah, just it's a little bit different.
I wouldn't Google it.
Yeah, well, no, don't. Well, so, what do you think about? Because I mentioned earlier, I find your mailbag article or series of articles very like entertaining, and I always find it interesting in the scheme of fantasy writing and honestly writing in general, but specifically fantasy writing. It's no secret that Matthew Barry is the biggest name in fantasy.
Correct.
But it's also no secret that he's not even close to the most accurate fantasy analyst.
No.
But he writes weekly articles that have unbelievably interesting content in it. He wrote a very interesting book, and he has a very entertaining podcast.
Yeah.
So,
tons of respect for him, and pretty much anybody who puts the amount of work that someone like him does. Like, I don't think what people just don't understand all the time is to have that wealth of knowledge, or to be able to write about something like that weekly and with as many words as he writes into his posts and these podcasts and all these sorts of different forms of media that he produces. That takes so much freaking work and so much commitment that, it's ridiculous. It's hard to fathom that as well. So. And it's not just him.
So do you? Yeah, that's true. Do you think? So do you ever kind of think of that as you're writing your articles, where you're like, oh, I better make sure that there's a joke here. I better make sure that this is, or do you just try to write the best fantasy analytics and advice that you can, and then if the joke pops in, the joke pops in?
It's got to be natural like that, and they just pop in because I think that's kind of who I am. But I think the biggest thing for me is that it's a freaking coping mechanism. To a lot of fantasy and a lot of just analysis with numbers and trends in general is that it's so freaking dry and it's so freaking boring sometimes. It's interesting, but if you look at an Excel spreadsheet for so long and try to find these trends on your own, you're going to go crazy. And so I think this is kind of my way of keeping myself paying attention to certain things. And I think a lot of the jokes and tangents I go on are so freaking random, and it is directly the result of me just being mentally exhausted. So I think as long as I think it's weird, the more research I put in, the more funny I think I'll be, because I think that's just derived completely from my own exhaustion and me trying to cope with it.
Oh man, that's awesome. All right, so we're about wrapping up. So I wanted to again, thank you very, very much for coming on and doing this. I've wanted to have you on for a while.
Yeah, man, I'll do this anytime. I know that my schedule sucks and we live kind of far apart, but I can do this.
Well, the Hangout's easy as shit.
Yeah, it is.
I was gonna say, and I'll bug you about this more as the season comes up. But if you ever wanna, do like fantasy stuff, just like whatever, like just talk about whatever the week is coming up. Please feel free to hit me up because I'd love to have you.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, so give us your Twitter again and any other plugs that you have, and then after this, if you could send me an email or like a Facebook message with the links, so when I put this up in a couple weeks, I can have all the links in it. Yeah,
totally. You can follow me on Twitter at thesacksbn, and that's there's not really a whole lot going on for fantasy right now, but you'll just probably get my random mental dumpings of certain topics. I mean, I can talk to you about Balgazi if you want, but but I'd rather not, and that's still the best. I hate all this conversation surrounding it, but I think Balgazi is the best name of a scandal that I've ever heard.
That's
in my
fantastic.
Life.
Yeah, no, that's some good comes out of things like that.
Exactly, some, but not enough.
Yeah.
So that's other plugs. Shit, what am I doing?
What do you do in the off season?
What do I do in the off? I hibernate.
Sleep? Yeah.
I sleep in a coffin until
A Tom
August.
Coughlin?
A Tom Coffin. That was horrible.
Yep. Oh, dude, the amount of puns I've held back on just for your sanity has been, it's killing me inside.
I'm a fan of puns. I think it's my British roots that kind of, I am part British, so that's despite the Italian last name, my mom.
Which part, the part that makes you want to wear that hat?
This, I'll have you know.
First,
this I'll have you know was knit by my wife's grandmother, and yeah, and I cherish it, and it's the only hat that can fit my massive cranium. So, yeah.
I was more making reference to your British roots, making you want to come over and genocide a whole group of people.
I mean, I think that's pretty much any group of people, not just from any roots, except for like Canada.
Yeah, those people. Those people.
I don't know. Apparently, yeah, I've accomplished a lot on this podcast now with you, Eric. Everybody is going to think that I don't give a shit about them and their well-being. And everyone's going to think I'm racist against Canada, which I have gained.
So one, you win some, you lose some.
I mean, yeah, it's the cost of doing business.
Yeah. I actually have a surprisingly large number of fans in Texas. Oh shit, that doesn't help you either. Never mind. Unless they're Texans fans.
I don't care. Like I said, I hate fans of every team. It doesn't matter. That includes the teams that I grew up with. They're all stupid.
I was gonna say, how do you feel? Okay, sorry. I know we're gonna wrap up, but I do want. How do you feel about Washington in the off season? What do you think's gonna happen?
I don't care.
It's your team.
It's the team I grew up on, so I'm always going to have like a certain tie to them. But I definitely I care more about being objective to the game as a whole.
Okay.
So I'm not like I follow them just inherently, but it's not like I'm going to have pom-poms in my hand whenever I analyze them or anything like that. I really don't care. I think Scott McLuhan was an awesome hire. I just think he needs to. It's going to take a couple years for him to bring in his guys, and I don't mean personnel-wise with players, but personnel-wise with his own scouts, because that hasn't happened yet. It's going to take a lot of years to kind of make that a possibility. So yeah. I think that I think with Dan Snyder, he's unequivocally one of the worst owners in all of sports, but I think he's just so embarrassed to the point now where he will seriously do whatever it takes. I mean, it's kind of just he just wants to do the George Costanza method at this point. Just do the opposite of what he's been doing and make it work. I don't think he's as stubborn as people think he is. I just don't think I truthfully just don't think he has a clue about how to run a sports team. So I think honestly at this point, as long as he's trying new things, that there's some hope. But whatever it is, it's going to be a long time running to make that team competitive each year. So.
I do have one other question. Now I just want to pick your brain because you have knowledge that I want. What do you think of the Ravens, Broncos, Bears coach circle jerk that just happened?
It's the NFL, man.
That's just normal.
I think
excuse me, I'm new here.
Nah, I mean, I got nothing really. Like it's just always gonna be. It's always about who you know, and the coaching trees have roots that are so deep that I can't even fathom those at this time. So, everybody's worked with somebody. The NFL is a fraternity; it's its own brotherhood. Everybody knows everybody to some extent. So he's recently just with the frickin' Bears, Ravens, and Broncos, all that familiarity. I mean, that's not something that's just unique to those three teams.
Yeah.
So.
All right, cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and we'll put up your Twitter link. This will probably go up in a few weeks, and I'll harass you as we get closer to the season.
Totally, man.
Pick your brain more. All right, thanks so much, dude.
You're welcome. Anytime.